The Say Something podcast is brought to you by amomentwithmorris.com and blackblueprints.com. That's blackblueprints.com. I am Jermaine Morris here with the one and only Mr. Barry Accius.
Yes, sir.
We are bringing you the newest episode of the Say Something podcast.
Say something, say something, say something.
That's where we get together, talk about everything going on in the life and the world out here in these streets.
In these cool, cool, cool streets.
Episode number 63 coming your way.
Boop, boop, boop.
Doing big things, making our way on up. This episode special shout out. We have this moment in Black excellence, this moment in Black history.
Yes.
We'd like to shine on a sister who has passed,
Okay.
gone on to be one of our ancestors, and she was born in June of 1895.
Mm-hmm.
And why? With looking at what her life was, when you hear people talk about how so much went on in our history in America was that long ago, this is to show that it wasn't that long ago. Yeah. So she was born in June of 1895. She was the daughter of two former enslaved parents. So her parents who had been slaves at some point in their lives. Her father even fought in the Civil War. She was one of 13. And as she grew up, she was only one of a handful of black students at an all-white school that she ended up going to. And to kind of fit in and to get in where she fit in, she was singing and dancing. So that's how she made friends, and that's how she became kind of popular. And as she did that through her teen years, she ended up meeting this guy who was a Broadway producer and it was a blues singer, and kind of put her on to the arts on a bigger scale. During the course of her life and her career, she ended up being in over 300 films.
Okay.
And she was a radio personality and doing like groundbreaking work. I mean, she went to perform at the USO with acts like Lena Horne. Like she did a lot. And part of what she kind of got some backlash specifically from the black community, because they was always saying that she did all these stereotypical roles. That, you know, she was a bad look for the cause, the movement, because she was always known as playing that sassy maid, or she was the one that was, you know, that mammy role that became so popular out of that era. She went on to be the first black woman on not only starred but recurring roles on radio. She was also the first black woman to win an Academy Award. And when she even went to receive her Oscar, she didn't get the statue that everybody's most remembers. She got the plaque that they used to give at the time to supporting actors. And in this building, it was a segregated building. And so they made a special exception for her, but she was at a two-person table segregated against the far back wall when it came to receiving her award. She went on to get 2 stars on one on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And then she got one for the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame. And she took so much heat in her day and so much heat during her era. But from the hoops that she decided to go through, kind of working from the system within when it came to music and film, opened the door for actresses that came down the road all the way to our Angela Bassett's and Jada Pinkett's and our Halle Berry's and all that. Rest in peace and show a little love one time to Miss Hattie McDaniel.
Yeah, young Hattie. Right.
Here with us in celebrating, if you heard a little extra clap action, we got a special guest here with us this episode.
Dun, 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 dun.
Since we're talking about, you know, doing it in film and TV and radio, got a brother sitting next to me, author of the book Black Fatherhood, Trials and Tribulations, Testimonies and Triumph, as well as the documentary of the same name. Here with us one time, Dr. Khalid White.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here with you this evening.
Thank you, sir. So you did the book and the documentary of the same name.
Absolutely.
What inspired you to put that out, and why did you feel it was so necessary to be made?
Well, you know, it's timely. I think that the issue of fatherhood, particularly Black fatherhood, is something that you know, is going to stand the test of time, honestly. It's an issue that we've been dealing with. It's some stereotypes we've been dealing with regarding Black fatherhood, and it's also, you know, time that we're changing the narrative now. We're changing those images. I think that we're changing it more on a grassroots level, if you do what they call the eye test, a lot of brothers are stepping up to the plate and being responsible, regardless if they're with the mother or the child or not. And so I just wanted to talk about some of that and some of those images and some of that positivity that we're exuding and we're showing now, as opposed to all the stereotypes and that type of thing.
So you have kids?
Yes, I do. One daughter. 11-year-old daughter. And she is the love of my life.
Is she with the wife that you have right now?
No, she's not.
Okay.
She's with, me and her mother are not together. We co-parent, and her mother honestly is doing a great job with her. I will say that. We continuing to co-parent, and we're trying to, work that whole situation and system out. It's got some ups and downs.
Okay, yeah, that's what we want to know. So because I'm a part of that co-parenting piece as well.
Yeah.
What inspired you, first of all, to write the book and to do the documentary? And at the same particular time, was it from the standpoint of where you and the relationship that didn't work with your child's mother? Did it stem from that? Was that the motivation?
That wasn't the motivation, honestly. The motivation for me to do it was, and I've shared the story before, when I was watching the situation unfold with Michael Brown out there in Ferguson, Missouri, and how they blame, the death of Michael Brown and the subsequent riots on, the father or stepfather in Michael Brown's case, and the lack thereof fathering and parenthood, and pretty much just blame the death and the riots on Michael Brown's family and his community, saying, hey, if you guys were more involved, he would still be alive and we wouldn't have a riot. And I was kind of pissed because, not kind of pissed, I was pissed because, again, they took away all the responsibility from the people and the persons who killed him. Later on, that officer was found innocent and no charges brought up. The whole story we could continue to see. So I just was mad, man, because I knew too many African American men who were responsible and who were hands-on with their children, and I want to be able to give light to that story when the media gives light to all these other stories of the deadbeat dad and try to put the deadbeat, stereotype on Michael Brown and his family and that type of thing. It just, really, really pissed me off. So, in a nutshell, it's kind of like a social justice project for me. I wanted to bring I can't bring Michael Brown back, and the book, doesn't even touch on the Michael Brown story, neither does the video. But at the same time, it touches on those scenarios and circumstances, that may have been surrounding in the Michael Brown situation, and also within Michael Brown's community out there in Ferguson.
Okay, your documentary in the book it's got a very cool concept to it in the sense that you have the perspective of so many different kinds of people as they address fatherhood. And so was that something that you were consciously aware of? Like, I want to get people of these different ages or these different circumstances. Was that just, let me just talk to whomever? Did you seek these people out specifically? Like,
well, to answer that, I sought out specifically people in certain scenarios.
Okay.
Whether it was a person of a certain age or, I wanted people with a range of ages, but I really wanted more so people in certain situations that black men and just men in general, dads, find themselves in, whether it's the co-parenting piece.
Okay.
Whether it is, again, raising a child who's not your biological child, who, raising a kid who, is a biracial kid and how that looks. Whether it is, having multiple kids with multiple women and dealing with family court and child support, all the things we kind of find ourselves in, I wanted to get men to kind of speak on those issues. And so I was able to find several men who, despite the trials and tribulations, they stayed down and stayed in the picture with their kids and are still active in their kids' lives. And so that's kind of,
Yeah, because it was pretty deep. And listening to you talk, I had the privilege of hearing you doing a book signing and talking on the family court system, about the struggles that brothers go through, because there is this misnomer that no brothers fight for their kids, and that black men don't stand up to be parents and aren't there. But there are a lot of extra hoops that black men have to jump through when it comes to the court system that the average Johnny on the street may not be aware of.
Absolutely.
And I think it was great that you brought that piece to it, that people can see, like, people aren't just making it up. That there's a lot of things, and then that you supplied information. So not just like, okay, well, this is somebody's struggle, but here are some steps. Like here's some things that you can do to avoid those things. What kind of feedback have you been getting?
Man, from the community, the feedback's been great. Everybody, one of the most responses I get the most is like, hey man, you should have included me. I got my story. I want to tell my story, that type of thing.
I definitely said that. If I'm not on the number 2, I don't know what's going on. I'm one of the greatest fathers that's ever did it.
Absolutely.
Straight up.
So, I get those types of responses all the time. But that just lets me know that, hey, man, it's made some impact. It's relevant to people. It makes sense. People can see themselves, a little piece of themselves in that type of thing. So that's been the greatest responses that I've gotten. It touches some nerves. It strikes some nerves and it triggers some people because these situations are very real. When you're dealing with parenting, fatherhood, motherhood, or the lack thereof, that's people still harbor those wounds, and it's still a lot of what they call daddy wounds and mama wounds out there, that people have to deal with. There's a lot of trauma, a lot of therapy that I think we need, in healing. Yeah. So, it's gonna touch on some sensitive topics, and so I knew that going into it, and I'm okay with it. But we have to be able to, to touch on some of those wounds in order for them to heal. And I think that's one of these, one of the benefits of doing this work is we start this healing process.
So a little bit about you. Did you grow up with your parents?
I grew up with my parents, yes, although they are not together. I definitely still have both of them in my life, and I'm pleased to say that. My parents split up when I was about maybe 9, 10, something like that. So it was still pretty young, man.
How about your relationship with your dad? You guys close?
We're still very close, man. Still very close. I'm fortunate in the fact that, he still was a dad to me and my brothers, and still is, and he's a grandfather now, so he gets, the chance to kind of do the whole grandfather thing. But he's still, a very valuable resource in my life. And I look back and say, man, I'm glad I had him, that I had him. Is he perfect? No. Is he always right? No, but I'm glad I had him as that example.
Yeah, because I think that part gets missed a little bit in fatherhood too. We always talk about kids, like your daddy when you're 10 or when you're 11. But fathers are still so instrumental when you're 30. Absolutely. Like, it's one thing they'll teach you how to tie a tie or how to ride a bike or to read or something when you're a little kid. But your father can be there when you get your heart broke the first time. Yeah. Your father can talk to you about buying your first house. Your father can talk to you about being a father the first time. Absolutely. That perspective of when past 15, but when you're 30, pops is 50, 60, whatever. Like, well, when you turn 30 and maybe you weren't at where you want to be in your career, how did you feel? Where were you at of those lines? I think fatherhood, we like to minimize it to just kids, but that's fathers just play a strong role throughout your entire life if you're fortunate enough to have one.
Absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head, at least in my scenario with my dad. I'm able now to ask him questions on advice on how to progress in life as an adult. Yeah. When I was getting ready to propose to my wife, the first person I asked was him. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dad, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about busting this move. What do you think? You know what I mean? I'm thinking about doing X or Y. You know what I mean? Like, so we got that type of relationship. And I'm fortunate, not everybody has that. I understand that. I'm able to ask him for advice, get his opinions, suggestions. It's not about calling him up and asking for money. I got my pride. I don't want to do that. But if I need to, I know that he can loan me $5 or something like that if necessary. But more so, it's just getting the wisdom, man, getting the knowledge, getting the know-how, the wherewithal, that type of thing, and the support. I still need it. I still need that encouragement. Still need that support. Still need to know that, son, what you're doing is important. And I'm proud of you. I mean, that, you can't put a dollar value on that.
That still gets you at 40 as well as 14.
Absolutely.
Because we hear a lot in our community that the biggest reason why we have, quote unquote, the problems we have is due to lack of fatherhood representation. If more men raised their kids, we'd have less teenage pregnancies, less gangs, less drugs, less dropouts, less all that. And I don't take away that to a degree that's true. It's not the end all be all. It's not the only factor. Right. And then there are a lot of fathers who are involved. So when you see stuff on TV and you see stuff on the news and You said with the Ferguson situation, how it struck a chord with you that the first thing that somebody goes to is not police misconduct or leaving a body in the middle of the street for hours on end, has to do with the type of father that this dude had. That those fatherhood. So when you start seeing stuff like, well, we're from Sacramento out here, so when you see the Stephon Clark situation, which will remind you of what happened in Ferguson, and the first thing that people go to is what was his daddy around? Yeah. When you start seeing that stuff across the board, does that strike the same chord with you as it did in Ferguson? Do you or is it just a narrative that you just tired of hearing? Do you think it's valid? Do you think that it's blown out of proportion? Do you think that it's it's one thing to say that this is it, but I think there's a whole lot of stuff that's purposely hidden, and that's what's thrown in front of it.
Right. Well, am I tired of hearing these things and seeing and reading about? Absolutely, right? However, as black men, we know that we kind of targeted, right? Yeah. Not kind of targeted. We are targeted. We are, being hunted, unfortunately, by, these rogue police officers and the criminal justice system just in general. And so when I see the Stephon Clark situation, the fact that he was a dad of two, and that gets swept under the rug. They want to show everything about who he wasn't or what his brother isn't, or not the fact that the officers, took this man's life unjustified, didn't have a gun, said he had a gun, all these different types of stuff. We're getting away from the actual point, is that this young man was murdered in cold blood at his grandparents' house.
Because they never ask if the officers had a daddy.
Never,
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's never that conversation.
There's never a look into the officer's background or their upbringing or whatever the case may be, or the training that they had or didn't have, or the fact that, again, in Sacramento there's been 20 some odd murders of black men by the police that have gone, just swept under the rug, and hey, life goes on.
Yeah, they just had the Pennsylvania, the shooting of the young man who was shot in his back by a police officer who'd been on the job 90 minutes. He'd been sworn in for 90 minutes. Less than a movie. Yeah, like, if you went to go watch the Avengers movie, before the movie let out, before Thanos snapped his fingers, this dude was on patrol taking somebody's life that was running from him.
When you put it in that type of perspective, mate, did this guy get on the force just to go shoot somebody black? You got to look at that. If I've been on a job 90 minutes, why are you even out on patrol with a gun? Why aren't you, we saw the movie Training Day, and that was fake. You know what I mean? And that was a movie, right? But no one is supposed to be out in the field doing these types of things and busting these types of moves, or being in a position of influence or authority. I would assume on the first day, you're supposed to be under the tutelage of somebody who's like a vet, right? Yeah. Who has some knowledge about what's going on. So it just kind of makes me wonder, like, man, did the person join the force just to justifiably shoot somebody, or just to say, hey, I got a gun? It goes back to this, the stereotypes of police. They probably was bullied as kids themselves and joined the force to feel tough and all that stuff, man. But again, the media really won't show, mainstream media won't show that. They'll spin it on this young man. He probably had braids or a hoodie on, or he was sagging or something to justify the fact that he's not here. And there's really no justification for you shoot somebody in the back. That's in any other situation. That's called a gangland or a gang style murder, right?
Yeah.
Shoot somebody in the back.
Because here's the thing. To this day, I don't know if Dylan Roof has a father involved in his life. I don't know if George Zimmerman grew up with his father. Right. I don't know if, like, all these people who are involved in things that take the lives of black people, their history, their family history is never brought to light. Never. That has absolutely plays no role in the assessment that's made about that individual. Mm-hmm. But the second when it comes to something with us, they bring up if you got detention in the second grade. Yeah.
Or what neighborhood you live in, what class of social class you're a part of, or did you graduate high school? None of that matters, man. In the grand scheme of things, you killed a young black man unjustifiably, shot him in his back, or shot him with his hands up, or said he had a gun when he had a cell phone. All this different type of stuff, man. If the shoe was on the other foot, they would be
It'd be called blaming the victim.
Every black man
it'd be called
would
blaming the victim. If you shot a white person and the first thing you did is bring up their
man.
family history, that's blaming the victim.
Exactly. So, it's a double standard for us in the criminal justice system. It's a double standard for us with law enforcement. We know that. However, those of us who are in positions of leadership, whether it's in the home or, just in terms of our families or have impact on the community, we have an obligation to, try to protect ourselves, and not necessarily protect ourselves just with physically, but also, mentally and emotionally, and protect our youngins, because that's really what we, part of our job as men and as leaders. You guys, I know that you out in the community, part of it is to emotionally and mentally protect the people that we're working with to keep them out of these situations as best we can.
So Barry, you I don't have any children, so I'm gonna shoot this to the two of you guys. Mm-hmm. So the day that you found out you were going to become a father, both of you guys, however that situation played itself out, if it was a phone call, if it was a letter, whatever, did you feel a shift? Like, because for some people they say that, once I found out I was going to have a baby, my whole life changed. Other people, the curve's a little slower. Like baby 1 or 2, then they double back and come back around. Is it like, because there's always the narrative is that black men don't have that attachment to fatherhood that some of these other cultures allegedly have more of. Mm-hmm. Like, so speaking as two guys firsthand who are fathers and been on the job, you over a decade, him over 2, mm-hmm. What does that speak to you, like the idea of fatherhood? Like when you first became a dad, found out you're going to be a dad, how did that like resonate with you? Like, just so, the real world feeling on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fatherhood as a black man living in America. The one thing about me, unfortunately, I've had a few incidents where I've made a couple mistakes as far as having 2 abortions coming in the game. So, when I was finally with the person that I felt like, okay, we need to do this, I had like 2 abortions in high school. And to me, it wasn't emotional thing. It more or less was like, yo, we're here in a situation and we can't take care of this kid, right? But I had no idea the emotional ties that it was with the woman, the girl I was dating at that particular time. But we were both in high school.
Wait a minute, 2 with the same girl?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like coming in the gate.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like different girls. Like the same girl had 2.
I came with 2 abortions, right?
Okay.
And then the second time around, she had, a pregnant again. And this time, again, I'm a senior in high school. I'm ready to go because I saw what it did, the abortion. I saw what it did to her. And I was like, maybe this is a sign from the Most High that, it's time for you to walk into this responsibility. I mean, you're responsible enough to go ahead and do the adult thing. You got to be responsible enough to,
do the adult thing.
Do the adult thing. Yeah. But she again had an abortion, and her mother actually was like begging me because she sold me. She was like, yo, I don't want to do it again. And she was breaking it down how we could make it happen. And I was like, well, I do kind of care about her, and I don't want her to go through abortion. And at that sense of time, I wanted to believe that I needed a sense of belonging because I'm a senior. The window of who I was about to close, and I was about to enter a whole different realm that I didn't know nothing about.
Okay.
Right? So you think about it, 4 years, I'm the man. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Yeah. I'm God, right? Now it's about to be after senior, there ain't no map, right? I wasn't going to a college, right? You know what I'm saying? I was pretty much my whole life I was hustling, and most of my partners had started getting locked up, and we, more serious things were starting to emerge, right? A lot of drug use, a lot of homelessness for some of my partners, and I felt like this would probably be a good step into starting my newfound manhood, right? Okay. Mother broke it down, said, my daughter's not ready, you're not ready, take it from me. Who has 2 children that I have to had the whole full responsibility of when I had my kid when I was young. So we had the abortion, but comes around again. I have you would think I would learn, right? I ended up having my girlfriend a year later, and it didn't even take that long for us to have this situation come again. And at this particular time, I was like, yo, I'm ready to have it. Like, let's do it. I thought me and her were at the right page. on doing things. So we had the child. So I was really excited about having a kid. I felt like, you know, I was in the right place. But again, I wasn't in the right state of mind because I was young, didn't really know where I was going. And I was heavily depressed.
Okay.
Right? I was very depressed coming out of high school. When we talk about guidance and we talk about that male leadership, my father and I didn't have that.
Okay.
We didn't have that come to Jesus moment where, okay, son, you know, here's the black blueprints. This is what you need to do. It was pretty much, you know, me and him were fighting bulls when we were going through the high school years. And my dad finally said, yo, I'm finna go back to Haiti, do some things. And my whole idea was like, yo, he's going to come back. He's going to be proud of me because I held down the household, things of that nature. But I ended up getting my girlfriend pregnant. But then he said he wasn't even coming back. So before he could even find out, you know, I was expecting a baby, he was going to be a grandfather. He was pretty much on his way to his retirement in Haiti. So we had the child, quiet as kept. Me and her, my daughter's mom, who are we're very great friends to this day. She's actually one of my business partners with my nonprofit. And of course, my daughter, as many know, my relationship with her is like, that's my girl, like for real. To be honest with you, in that moment, we were actually put together. Right, we were like, had the apartment, had the house, you know, both working. So in reality, we were pretty much on a good foot, but it was all those things that we didn't know. I didn't know about the postpartum depression and all these different things. I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was like, what, you don't love me anymore? So I'm thinking I got to run back to the streets. I didn't understand that. I did not know how to adjust being still growing as a young man, as an adult, to basically like, yo, you got babysitting duties. You know what I'm saying? It was like, wait a minute, I still want to go out. Well, you can't go out because ain't no one going to sit there and take care of your child but you. So the growing pains of being a father for the third time, about hearing it, I was excited. But I didn't understand, nor did I realize, or never had the conversation, because I had friends that had young babies. I remember one of my best friends at that particular time, he had a baby when he was a junior. A junior in high school. And the unfortunate thing about that, which was his first baby, he never took care of that child. Okay. Right? And with me, I always stuck to my guns. If me and my daughter's mom wasn't going to be together, I was going to always take care of my child. So I feel that I've done that in such a way that any of my shortcomings, anything that was in my relationship with my father, I didn't step into that with my daughter. As many would know, as how I uphold my daughter to the utmost. But at the same time, I was very flawed in the beginnings of my fatherhood because I did not realize, as much as that baby is important, that person that you have a child with is just as important. And the fact that picking a right mate with this responsibility, because it ain't just 18 years. No, it's a lifetime commitment. I didn't realize some of the extremities. Forget about the diapers, forget about the milk, or forget about the strollers and who's gonna watch who. I had no idea, no clue that the cohesiveness between me and her, the woman that I laid with to have this child, was just as important as me figuring out a 5-year, 10-year plan for my child.
Okay, well, before we slide over to you, Doctor, a couple things you brought up which stick out, which I don't think we touch on enough in our society. So the first thing that kind of hit my radar is your emotional feelings when she had an abortion. Because you never hear about the guy's real perspective on when that happens. So maybe in the moment you were like, this is probably the best thing because we're not logistically ready. Did it ever hit you later? Like, were you ever 6 months down the road, a year down the road? Were you ever like, did it ever really stick with you? Or had you kind of turned the corner because it was the right decision at the time?
Like I said, the first time I had no idea the emotional attachment of the woman. I thought we would just, and on top of that, when I was about to have the kid, I don't think the science was out there as much as it is now. Yeah. I'm thinking we just taking care of some business and let's get on, let's move it up, move ahead with the schedule plan. Goes on, when I realized the effect that it had on her when the second time she got pregnant and she was like begging me and crying every time I came to her, please don't make me do this, please don't make me do it. I felt compelled. I was like, well, damn. And then in a weird way, I mean, I think that, we always think we're shooting blanks, you know what I'm saying? Because these young boys, we just wilding out doing what we do. Yeah. So it's like, oh man, I can't even have a child. I'm pulling out, whatever, what we thinking. So I'm like, well, maybe if I have a second abortion, I'll never have that opportunity to have a kid again. Okay. So I think that part of me, felt really, really bad the second time around because I realized that this is just not having some kind of procedure. This person is killing a living being in her stomach, right?
Yeah.
Compared to me just thinking like, oh, girl, it's not.
A tooth pulled.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Not only that, but it ain't. There's no emotional attachment to it. It hasn't, grown any length. It ain't a real person, right?
Yeah.
So I think that second time around, it really hit me. That's why when the third time it came, I was just like, yo, we have to have this. I was in all support of having, the child. But again, I think that's why, we do the work that we do. I tell a young person, women or male, don't have a kid too early. Save that sacred spot, save that love when you're ready, when you know. Young love is such an experience, as we call it, teenage love, whether even if you're 21. Yeah. It's such an experience that you're so blindsided off potential, right? Yeah. You're so blindsided off of, I remember what my daughter's mom used to cook me, fried chicken and brownies and rice-a-roni, and I was like, yeah, this is my wife forever. Then you kind of figure out, like, shoot, rice-a-roni comes from a box. It ain't even real rice, Yeah. Like, I don't really like fried chicken. I like chicken breast smothered in mushrooms or something like that. Mm. But there's so much more into life. You don't really know until you experience life and experience the world to what you really want. And I figure that me and her are great friends, but we were never compatible in a way to have a child. And it has to understandably get what I tell these youngsters. Compatibility is so important when you think about you're going to be with this person for life. Yep.
So when and similar to you, when you first got the news, was it? I heard some of the story when we spoke before, but if you can kind of give people like a little insight into like the thought process, what goes through your mind, like when you're just living your life, doing your thing, and all of a sudden you find out, you've created a life with somebody.
Sure. Yeah, man. For me, it really wasn't a happy experience, and I've gone on to
speak on that.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't happy news, man, because I was trying to be a person who didn't have any attachments to, one woman. I was trying to have
player.
Yeah, I was trying to be in several different situations, and I for lack of a better term.
When was the age?
25.
Okay.
Yeah, so I definitely was kind of in a more.
See, mine was like 19.
Yeah. But honestly, I had the mentality of like a 17-year-old. You know what I mean? So I was 25, but my mind was probably 17, 18. So I was still in that. Hey man, I'm out here like what did Prince Hakeem say? I'm gonna sow my royal oats or whatever. I'm out here doing that and just kind of moving and shaking. And so when I got the news, man, it really wasn't a pleasant call to get. I had to adjust to it and I had to prepare for it as best I could. But during the whole time, at least the first part of the pregnancy, I was fighting it. I was considering packing up and leaving, considering
you're gonna be a deadbeat nigga.
Yeah, exactly. And I had really kind of thought like, man, you know what? I can understand how a person can be a deadbeat because I feel like just bouncing, basically changing the phone number, taking all the money that was out the bank account, and I was getting ready to go somewhere else outside the state of California, man, where I couldn't be found, right?
Wow.
And just hide. But again, man, I had too many examples of people who around me who were active with their children and raising their kids, and regardless of their marital or relationship situations, they were really staying down for the home team. And so I didn't want to be that person that was a deadbeat. I didn't want to have that jacket on me, and I don't want to have that. I couldn't look myself in the mirror, and be okay with myself. I can look myself today in the mirror and say, hey man, I did the right thing, made the right decision. But at the time, I was devastated, floored.
Well, I think the crucial part with that is that you had a bunch of models of possibility around you. You had a bunch of representation of stand-up dudes and good fathers.
Yeah, definitely, and that helped me. And that still helps me because, the model or the blueprint, the black blueprint,
yes, sir.
Right? It's important. We got to have some type of plan or some type of structure, and I had that, and I still have it, and I see how influential and impactful that was on me and still is on me. And you know, man, it's really a privilege to be a father. Now I'm seeing that now.
Say
that one more time, man. Say that one more time for the folks in the back.
It is a privilege. It is an honor. It is really a step up in the manhood game to be able to have a child. Because for one, not everybody's physically able to do it.
Yeah,
doesn't happen. True. For two, not everybody is mentally or emotionally able to do it.
True.
And for three, man, it really is a game changer. And I really, you know, I'm biased. I have a daughter. I know you have a daughter, but the relationship between the father and the daughter is a real thing. You know, not to say the relationship between sons and fathers, or you know, but when you had a mama's boy and a daddy's girl, man, that's real. And me and my daughter, we got a great. Well, I think it's a great relationship. Sometimes
until she gets older, you'll find out the truth.
Yeah, man. So I'm working to make sure that, you know, when she is 21, 25, whatever the case, or when she, you know, is ready to move on to be into womanhood and get married or whatever the case may be, that she can say, you know what, Dad, thank you for doing what you did and thank you for being there in the ways you have been. You know, and I appreciate that. The same way that I'm able to kind of say that to my dad and to my grandfathers and that type of thing.
See, the thing about it, I look at it when we talk about the privilege piece.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful thing when you came down to Sacramento. For those who didn't show up, we had the movie for free. And you shared that intimacy with us, with your documentary, and some of the powerful conversation we had afterwards. Such a great cast of brothers and sisters that was on the panel to break down the truth, and I think the black truth about fatherhood, right? Because the stigma is black fathers. One, don't matter. Black fathers are never there. Black fathers are deadbeat, but the original deadbeats was the white man, right? You know, because he was going in, the master was going in and having, babies not only out of wedlock, but babies out of just being bastards. You know what I'm saying? In the sense of just raping and maliciously taking from our black women. And I apologize that some of our brothers have kind of found that same antidote of feeling that that's what it is, and that behavior is not from black men. That behavior is from our white slave masters, right? But still no excuse. So when I say privilege, the honor that I have to be able to sit there and say that I've planted a seed, not only planted a seed, but I've molded, I've shaped. My ingredients, my black blueprints, as we like to say, has been able to lift this person up to those moments of her greatness. I can sit there and say, had a part in that, right? Genetically, emotionally, physically. One thing my dad did wasn't a great thing in the sense of telling me, but a great thing in the sense of giving me an example. The example that he showed me was hard work. The example that he showed me that even in the most the terrible times, I'm going to take care of family. So he took care of my mother. My mother was, I never had my mother in a position to where she was able to give me these emotional needs, where she was able to teach me things that most young men will be able to say their mother was able to teach. And not even an example of, yo, that's what I shouldn't do because she was a crackhead. It was nothing like that. My mom was mentally ill. She had bipolar and she was schizophrenic. And this was from me from the beginning, right? That's what my memories of my mom is that. Right, it was no. I remember when we went.
It wasn't gradual.
We wouldn't have no. It wasn't no Christmas, even though my mom was normal at a time, but it wasn't anything to where I remember. So having that lack of nurturing, because my aunties were pit bulls, even though I love them to death, I had my father that had to be everything. And my father, from when I knew, because I had some bitterness to my dad, and I shared that at the panel, because my dad, if he loved me, he sure didn't like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if he loved me, he sure didn't like me during the teen years, right? I was very upset, angry when my father, who made the promise that he was coming back, never came back, and we had so much some things that we needed to kind of hash out, and we never did it.
Okay.
Some things that I felt like as men, now that I am, that I was able to learn, I was able to listen, and he was able to teach, because he was the definition of a real man's man. Because again, he took care of my mom when he didn't have to, and then the stuff that he did for me, I could probably be serving prison time if my father was one of those fathers that didn't care enough for his son and kept me in the system. I put myself in the system, but he could have definitely kept me in the system when he used to find my stash. He used to find my stashes of marijuana. And I'm talking about big amounts of marijuana. Don't know where that dude put it, but he found some big amounts of marijuana. And somehow, some way, he wouldn't even say anything to me. I would go in there. It was in my mother's room. Would go in there. I'd hide in my mom's room. I'd come in and I would look. And I know my mom ain't did nothing because my mom was out of her mind. And I would just, we wouldn't even say, it wasn't a conversation. Yeah. It was, you motherfucker, right? I would just look. And he would look at me. I'd go upstairs, and it was to the point where he found like my stash probably 3 or 4 times, big weed, and just it would disappear, right? And he could have easily called my probation officer, and I would have been put in a jail, and then eventually I would have probably went into some other stints. And I probably could have screwed my life up. Yeah. He never did that, but at the same time, we never talked about it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And so our conversations were kind of like, yo, he said some rude things to me, but I'm sure that I did some rude things to him with my actions. And so when he left, I was hoping that we could mend, hopefully we can build. And I was very angry that my father wasn't a part of what this was now. Like, he would being a grandfather. His first grandchild was my daughter. Him being able to help me, as we talked about earlier, navigate through this fatherhood. What does this look like? I've seen you do it, but I don't really know the ins and outs of this. Yeah. So my auntie one day talked to me, said, why are you so bitter about your dad? And I was just going off. I said, I don't care if he dies. If he died, I'll, it wouldn't even bother me. I'm like, she's like, dude, you're tripping. Yeah. She said, she broke it down about my father's relationship with his father. And that's when I understood my father couldn't have gave me anything that he didn't know himself. Sure. He didn't learn it and understand it because he never had it. So what I did intentionally, for these niggas who are debating about, I want to be in my child's life, or fuck my baby mama, and the system got me this, or whatever excuse a nigga will want to make. And I get, trust me, because my daughter's mom, even though we're super cool, we went through hell after the breakup.
It wasn't always.
Yeah. We went through hell. Yeah. The bottom line is, you got to figure out a place and a way to coexist, and at the same time, never make that excuse, but understand that the importance of being able to stay connected with that child and give that child everything that you did not get. Yeah. So what I took from what my relationship with my father was, all the goods and intangibles my dad had, because he had plenty. But I made sure those things that I lacked, that I wanted, I made sure I installed it with my daughter. And that's why my relationship with my daughter is, I love her and I like her. So it's no mistake. Now, does she get on my nerves? You're damn right. Do I still have to chastise her on times? I just did it probably last week. But when I can sit there and tell you that she moved to LA for the summertime to do her internship. She's at the BET Experience right now doing her internship. And this is her 3rd or 4th year, I believe, doing it. To watch her see now how her father has worked as hard, and how I'm so focused on not only the business that I have and working with all the young people that I'm working, committing myself as being an uncle or father for them, and just moving the movement with them, but I'm committed to making sure that she gets everything I have, all my resources, all my energy, all my thoughts, all my mistakes, all my learned lessons, to make sure she is successful. Like, it is more than fatherhood to 18. It's fatherhood for life. Absolutely. And it's a privilege for me and an honor for someone to be a person that I helped create, to be able to navigate with them. And I don't see how you would want to move from that feeling. The feeling is priceless. No material thing can give you that. And I wake up every morning excited about being a father. And I think that is something where brothers lack. And I told a brother what I saw in LA, because he said, I feel like I've failed as a father. I said, you haven't failed as a father until you fail as a father. The one thing about it, what you need to know, and I think brothers need to grasp, it's not about the material things that a child wants. It's about that quality time. Be there at the moments where it's pertinent. Be that person that was the first one to give them roses. Be that first Valentine's Day. Be that person that was there at their graduation, there at their recitals. Push them to do things that they haven't seen. Be that person that they travel with. My daughter is my best travel companion. You know what I'm talking about? We travel every December, because we don't do Christmas. We make sure that we get out of here. Yeah. Those are the things that you have to install. And if a brother is dating a person who, if the situation doesn't work out with the mother of their child, and he's dating a person that is kind of afraid of that relationship, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and make a decision. Ain't no man nor woman is more important than being with your child.
Yeah, because the influence that the parent has is insane. Like the degree that influence that you have, that you should be that force for that child as they grow up. Because as we come to see now that we have a lot of children in this technological age, they know how to manipulate through a cell phone at 3 years old. They know how. I got a 3-year-old nephew knows how to go on my brother's phone, go to YouTube and watch Paw Patrol. Like he knows how to watch what he wants to watch. And so these kids get so much outside influence outside of the house, and they're gravitating to these IG thought models and this rapper of the week, little so and so, little pistol starter, little stomach ache, all these different people, and that's who they're starting to get their influence from and their cues. And you're seeing the type of behavior that these people are exhibiting. They're watching. You go online at any day of the week, and you're seeing this rapper getting busted for this person getting arrested for this, or the people who are no longer with us, because of the decisions they were making or the way that they were living their lives. Someone decided to cut their life short. So as a father, that you got a young one. Yeah. So you still got, it's more or less halftime.
We still waiting for you to go drop one, man.
Slow down. And so, so when you start thinking about all the external influences, all the social media stuff, all the other voices chirping in your little girl's ear, trying to get her to sway this way and that way. Like, what are some of the thoughts that go through your mind, or what are some of the things that you like? I need to make sure I'm doing this, or I need to.
Presence is important, man. Presence is more important than presence.
There you go.
Right?
Say that again for the folks in the back.
Presence with a CE is more important than presence with a TS.
Yeah.
Right? So just being there is just as important, just as influential. Now, can you stop a child from being curious about sex, or curious about what's on the internet, or curious about what they see on BET? I don't think so. Yeah. And then more so now, because everything is, through the phone or accessible through social media, whatever, you have to be there and be present in order to say, well, hey, son, hey, daughter, that's not real life. Or that is a snippet of somebody's life. But behind the scenes, man, once you get off FaceTime or whatever, man, real life happens. And so, I'm definitely, I won't say worried, but I'm cautious and conscious about the different influences that are out there, because you could have a 2-parent household, you could have parents who are college educated and this, that, and the third, but the influence of social media, the streets, or whatever else that's out there still is very, it's heavy, especially when your child's at a developmental stage, when they're trying to find out who they are, trying to find themselves, right? So you got to stay in there to more or less, weed out the influences, whether they be negative or positive. And a lot of it is, okay, whatever your friends think is cool, or whatever the group that you want to be associated with is cool, you're going to gravitate towards that.
Okay.
So if cool for them is the chess club, then your child hopefully will gravitate towards the chess club. But more often than not, it's not the chess club. That's it's not the chess team that's drawing their attention, man. It's all that stuff they see on, IG and that type of thing. So you got to be there to kind of, be the filter for some of that.
Yeah, because a lot of parents, they you worry about your kids being in gangs. You worry about your kids being on drugs. You worry about them having sex too early. Mm-hmm. But they've got reports, coming across the country about how suicide amongst teenagers as a viable way of dealing with your emotional problems. About how the world is just too cold at 13.
Yeah, it was.
That there's just no reason to wake up tomorrow. And they've, reports coming through, children as young as 8 and 9 found hanging themselves.
Terrible.
And these types of influences that they wouldn't have normally thought. But the people that they look at online, and the stories that they see on Instagram and the Snapchat story and such and such and such and such, one after another, like I said, I understand like the gangs and the violence and the drugs. When you start thinking about the safety of your child, like how often in a given day, like when the thought process that like you here right now and your family's at home, like because I think one of the things we talk about the state of fatherhood, Black fatherhood, is that it's out of sight, out of mind, or it's children are just kind of an accessory But speaking on like how much you really think about your kids, like you think about how much you worry about them when they're not here. You still got one young at home. You got one that's grown. Like speaking to, you know, now I'm worried about where she's at when she's at school.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm worried about where she's at when her and her mama go to the store real quick. You know, those types of things.
Yeah.
Well, I want to tap in. That piece is what actually triggered me to change my attitude about how I was being a black man as a father, because I spent so much of my time when my daughter was young thinking that the things that I was doing wouldn't hurt her in the long run, and I was in the game. I was in the game pretty thick, right? Square up, get back in the game, and then finally I had an epiphany in 2008 where it's like, I can't rock like this. One, I don't want my daughter to ever have to shake her head or question what my father is. What does your daddy do? You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I don't, you know, he said he's a construction worker, but he has these white girls in our house naked, smoking cigarettes. You get what I'm talking about? Or having to be ashamed. Well, I don't really know where my dad's at. You know what I'm saying? I had to really come to terms that my lifestyle ultimately affects her lifestyle moving forward. Okay. So if I'm going to pick up my pieces, and I tell people that you only have such a window to figure out how you want to kind of play the game, or kind of be nonchalant in whatever you feel like you need to do, because eventually that child is going to get older, it's going to be a teen, and they're going to be very resourceful, and they're going to live their own life. You don't even have to worry about saying the important parts of your time with your child is having dinner. They're going to be able to figure out dinner. They're going to figure out a place they want to live, because they'll have a friend that's always going to say, hey, you can come over to my house, because that's what I was. Because me and my dad, when we stopped seeing eye to eye, and he could no longer really force me to stay at home, I was out. Because I think one of the most important things that we forget, and when we talk about a young lady and a male, that young lady, the relationship between the young girl and the father is going to probably dictate what that young girl finds in a man. And when you do not sit there and pour and make sure you're not building up a wall for your girl to be like, I hate all men, you got to be just like my daddy, but you're giving her enough of some influence so she can see what a real man is compared to what a boy. So a Negro can't just run game on her because dad's gamed her up. Not dad has tortured her, not dad has molested her, not dad has let her down, but dad has gamed her up, dad has coached her, dad has talked to her, dad has loved her. The important part, loved her, liked her, showed her support. And I feel like when you roll around and you look at fatherhood in the black community, the fact that we're, as black men, and this is no excuse, but this is to understand, as we don't deal with our own trauma, whether it's a relationship that we're scorned from, or a parent that wasn't there, or some of the trauma we might have seen in the streets or in the household, in the classroom, where we've felt deficiencies there. When we don't deal with this trauma, we more or less bring it into our relationships, and then we spread that disease to our child. Sometimes in the fact that it can go down where I remember my child was reading to me one time, and I started slapping her in the head when she would say a wrong word. Who did I learn that from? I learned that from my father when my dad would pull on my ear every time I said a word wrong. And guess what happened to me? I stopped wanting to read, because I was in fear that every time I was going to read with my father, I was going to get punished. I snapped out of that so fast because I knew if I did that for my daughter, that is going to probably block her from wanting to learn how to read. So being in tune, when we talk about suicide, being in tune with your child, asking on it every day, especially with social media as now becoming the more influential component compared to where it was the streets and our friends. Our friends will tell us something stupid to do and we go and do it. Where our parents were like, what the hell did you do that? So it was naiveness, it was curiosity that killed the cat, right? But now it's like, wait a minute, that's a person that looks just like me in Alabama that did that. I'm going to do it too. So when you're not connected or in tune or having these relative conversations, these real deep conversations with your child as they're maturating into their adulthood or to their teenage years, and checking up on them and mindfully understanding that what they go through will be a little bit different than what you go through. Their journey is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be a lot of similarities, but respectfully understanding the differences in that, you'll find out there's ways that you can really condition your child to be greater than self, but at the same time also with knowledge, knowing you can make sure your child doesn't do something destructive to themselves. And I believe that's kind of one of the biggest things where we go wrong as parents. We're not in tune to what is happening with our child because we're so focused on what the hell is happening to us, more worried about the bills than worried about building up the kids.
And for you, doctor, when you similar, because I'm saying Barry's already got the he's past a certain point on Bismarck where his daughter's grown, though the fears and worrying about her safety are just as strong. You're still in the hotbed of all the stuff that she's right up under your roof. She has yet to see these points of reference in the world, and I'm sure part of you was like, let me just try to shield her so she doesn't see these things happening. But then I got to make sure she's exposed to enough that she can deal with it when she sees it. Mm-hmm. Like, what are some of the things where you're at this stage right now?
Well, it's my body's changing. Okay. And, I'm going to be experiencing development, period, all that different type of stuff, right? That's the latest thing. And we've been talking about that, last week or two, honestly. And that's a situation, and that's a topic that I really don't know too much about, the woman's development, because, I just didn't experience
Talk to your mom.
Yeah, basically talk to your mom. But she needs it from both parents, right?
She definitely needs a father's understanding.
Absolutely. So, I'm talking to her about, okay, well, you're getting ready to go to middle school. That's when I got into my curiosity stage into, experimenting with girls and that type of thing. And, a young boy has to respect you. If you like a boy, that's one thing, but a boy has to like you. And not only that, has to respect you for everything from the neck up. Yeah. Those types of conversations. And, it's not easy to have that with somebody who's 11 years old, right?
Yeah. But necessary.
But it's necessary. And it's not even easy to bring that topic up. That's one thing. All these different school shootings.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And these kids walking into middle schools and high schools and, that type of thing, man. And, that scares me. That definitely scares me. I tell her, look, if you see somebody with a gun or you hear some gunshots, this is what you need to do. You need to get low. You need to do. But I got to have these conversations with her or with my niece or something like that. And it's like, man, these are tough conversations to have, but necessary. If you're getting it off of Instagram, you're going to get all type of misinformation. If you're getting it from Facebook or all type of miscalculations, let me tell you from the best of my perspective and my ability on how you should, do these things. So again, it's having these conversations, it's touching on these topics that are not easy to touch on, touching about race and her hair. My daughter's hair is in locks. So, not everybody's hair is going to look like yours.
Exactly.
Not everybody's skin is going to be like yours. And so with that, you're going to have some experiences that are different.
So have you reached a point to where you really have the racial conversation? Because we're speaking to the state of Black fatherhood in America and some of the misnomers and misinformation about how Black men are actually there for our children. Yeah. We are emotionally connected.
There for our children.
That we care. But we've taken the racial component, you'll see something like, okay, so now the big thing is the detained children in the border, where you have all America up in uproar over these detained children. Yeah. And I don't think that anybody, no children should be locked up in little cages under any circumstance like that.
Or separated from their parents like that.
But it's interesting to see the dynamic on how racially this country makes its exceptions, because there's no issue about separating Black children.
Right.
Not at all.
There's no issue about Black families being separated.
Make them uncomfortable.
That actually used to be legal policy back when
that was policy
during the Lyndon B. Johnson era, where Black women wanted to get on welfare, and the only way that they could do it is that they had to kick the man out the home.
They couldn't be in the home.
And they used to go door to door for any woman on state assistance and physically check the house, make sure there weren't no boots, there wasn't no men coats. If you had a son and he was of a certain size, that jacket better not fit him, or you weren't going to get state assistance. And that only applied to Black women, not to white women who were on state assistance. assistance. So this country has got a long-standing history of breaking up black families without batting an eyelash. But you see it now that everybody's protesting in arms over separating these children that don't happen to be black. So as you raise your child up now, how much conversation do you have on the racial component of her growing up? Is her mother black?
Yep.
Okay, so you raising a straight up black girl with straight up black hair, with straight up black features, because that does make a difference. That ambiguous middle of the road when you talk about mixed children. She could be Puerto Rican, she could be Hawaiian. You were raising a straight up young black woman. How do you have those black conversations?
Yep, you got to, because again, at some point in everybody's life who is black in America, you're gonna have that experience. You're gonna have the interaction, the encounter, where you're gonna be made to feel different for being black. So let's try and address that up front. Unfortunately, as much as you want to address it, hey, these things are happening because a person's black, or a person's gonna look at you this way or treat you this way or that way because you're black. Until they have that experience, you can talk to you blue in the face, but the experience or the encounter itself is going to make them feel a certain way. So anyway, back to the point. Yes, we have to understand that we are African American. We are of African descent. We are black. We are, melanated. Whatever the
term
label,
we are this decade,
right? Whatever label that you want to subscribe to. But at the end of the day, because of our skin color, our complexion, our features, we're going to be treated a certain way, and that goes for black girls as well as it goes for black boys, right?
Have you already had an incident?
She has.
Yeah,
absolutely, she has, and she had an incident in kindergarten. Now, does she remember that? Maybe, maybe not. I haven't brought that up with her, but I recall vividly, and the teacher said this and that because of her skin or that. So. Again, we have these conversations. I try not to put it in a negative light, but just, hey, we are black. And, we've had this history and these things have occurred to people that look like us and that type of thing, but that doesn't mean that you're any less than anybody else. Or for lack of a better term, it doesn't mean that you're any more than anybody else, right? We are who we are. We're family. We, are a people who have done some great historic things over time and still currently, and our blackness is a badge of honor, not necessarily a badge of shame.
See, I think that these are all very important conversations that we need to start having on the regular. That if we leave it up to somebody else to dictate our narrative about how we live our lives in our families, in our communities, you'll see that they're going to paint that painting any way they want to.
Well, they have.
But that we need to get control of our own brush, get control of our own strokes, of our own paint, and tell our story the way that not only it was intended, but the way it really happens. Black fatherhood in America is the fact that it's even a conversation when we don't address Latino fatherhood in America, or we don't address Asian fatherhood in America, or Caucasian fatherhood in America, already lets you know what the narrative is trying to be painted. You already know what the picture's trying to be looking like. And the fact is that as long as we stand up in our communities and we stand up with our family and we take control of our own narratives, use our own voices on our own platforms, and keep it about us. They can say whatever they want to say about us as long as we show up like we're supposed to show up. And that not letting the narrative that speaks ill of you become your fate anymore, or falling into it because it becomes easier because someone didn't expect you to do something anyway, so you're just going to go ahead and not be nothing. That as long as we stand up, as long as we're the men that we need to be, that we were born to be, and that our communities and families need us to be, we'll be all right. And that these are things that we need to walk that walk, talk that talk, and definitely say something about. I'm Jermaine Morris here with Barry Accius with special guest Dr. Khalid White in the building.
My brother, big shout out, yo. Shout out.
Me, fellas.
Author of Black Fatherhood, Trials and Tribulations.
That's it.
The book as well as the documentary. Where can folks get copies, and where can folks find you online?
They can find me on www.blkmpwr. That's blackempower.com. I'm also, all my stuff is on Amazon and that type of thing for the mainstream audience, right? But, black-owned business, www.blkmpwr. And
any social media handles?
Yep, at Black Empower on everything. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you know what I mean? You can also look me up, Khalid White, Khalid, last name White.
Dr.
Khalid White. So Google it, look me up. I'm not hiding or ducking. I'm not hard to find. And again, thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. Always a pleasure. And yeah.
Thank you for being here. Where can folks find you online, Barry?
Oh man, where can folks find me? They can find me they can follow me on Barry Accius. Facebook, Barry Accius, Twitter and at Instagram is at Team Voy. Just want to leave this note of, Black fatherhood is a scary thing, just like anything else, but it's a necessary thing, right? So we definitely need to make sure that brothers understand it is very much a privilege. Yeah. So if you are not ready or prepared to take on the responsibility, because we got a lot of bad mojos running around here, and they not running around here being made by themselves. They got parents, right? 20-year-old brother got killed by another young brother, 22, in Florida, and that's just not by coincidence. All I always ask is where the fathers are at, right? Mm-hmm. Let's look at some of our other great rap artists that have passed away. Mm-hmm. You're always wondering, where was the father's influence at? And for the fathers that don't think that it's important to keep on delivering message of real or delivering message of love and support to their child when the child gets a certain age, you are part of the problem that we have right now in the black community. We need fathers to be fathers for the long haul. It is death do us part. Yeah. Fatherhood is just like a marriage. You know what I'm saying? If a real marriage, mm-hmm. right? There ain't no divorce into this. So that's all I got to say on that.
Thank you for that. I'm Jermaine Morris on Facebook. Every other social media platform is at J Morris CEO. This has been the Say Something podcast. And until next show, we will holler at you later.
Yes, sir.